Okay, this is Chapter 2, Dyslexia in the Classroom by Dale R. Jordan. The book originally came out in 72. This is a second edition. This is 1977. Chapter 2 is visual dyslexia in the classroom. And I want you to keep that picture in mind right there that shows the arrows going from top to bottom, left to right. Very important to this chapter. Chapter 2, Visual Dyslexia in the Classroom. As described in Chapter 1, visual dyslexia refers to the inability to interpret printed symbols accurately. Symbols meaning letters and numbers. Although this inhibition is somewhat mysterious, it can be identified by teachers who are alert to its symptoms. As far as classroom performance is concerned, visual dyslexia is basically the failure to keep symbols in correct order. Whether the handicapped child is scanning words or trying to recall them in sequence, the visual dyslexic cannot accurately follow the sequential order he encounters in encoded language. Visual dyslexia syndrome. There is no single behavior characteristic which establishes dyslexia. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. There is no single behavior characteristic which establishes dyslexia. All children manifest faulty perception in various stages of maturation. Before visual dyslexia can be confirmed, a set or syndrome of behaviors must be identified. Only when an unmistakable cluster of perceptual disabilities is diagnosed can a teacher safely conclude that a child is dyslexic. Confusion with sequence. The underlying flaw in visual dyslexia is the child's inability to comprehend order of sequence. Few classroom teachers fully realize how much of the school day is geared to the following model. And again, the arrows show left to right, top to bottom. All reading, except for special instances in certain content areas, must be done from left to right, from top to the bottom of the column or page. This principle is so commonly taken for granted that almost no reminders are made by teachers above the primary grades. It is assumed that any child who reads will automatically do so within this framework. Unfortunately, this is not so for dyslexics. The dyslexic orientation is the opposite, or partly so. The dyslexic tendency is mirror image, meaning that the student's nature is to process symbols backwards from right to left and bottom to top. In fact, one of the developmental milestones we look for in kindergarten pupils is the point at which they turn it over and begin to conform to the standard directionality of school materials. Approximately 80% of the student population achieves this standard left to right, top to bottom orientation successfully, although late maturing children may not do so until second or third grade. The remaining 20% never fully achieve this standard orientation. Most of them are dyslexic. So unfortunately for Mike, his primary teachers did not understand his difficulty with directionality. When the reading teacher introduced the letter D, she assumed that all her pupils perceived it left to right, which is ball first, then the stick, and top to bottom, which is stick pointing up from the ball. Mike was completely unaware of his different orientation. He perceived the letter D right to left, which is stick first, then the ball, and bottom to top, which is stick below the ball. What the teacher perceived as the letter D, Mike perceived as P. Several critical symbols are thus misperceived by dyslexic learners. D, B, P, and Q are the worst. Then there are M and W, lowercase u and n, the number 7 in the uppercase L, the numbers 6 and 9, and lowercase h and y. When dyslexics only partly rotate symbols, they often confuse the letter N for the letter Z, we're talking uppercase, and the numbers 3, at the number 3, the uppercase M, and the uppercase W. The unfortunate consequence is that Mike is constantly told he is wrong. Unless someone explains how his perception differs, he enters the reading and writing process with no idea that he is heading in the wrong direction up a very busy street. This is why he constantly collides with oncoming traffic. His teachers and most of his peers are proceeding in one direction, while he travels in the opposite, or at least partly opposite way. So long as this situation is not recognized and understood, there is no way he can master the symbol system without constant conflict and the put down of always being wrong. Generally, this disability functions whenever the dyslexic tries to deal with time, arrangement, or relationships of entities along a continuum. For example, instead of recalling an orderly progression of experiences in relation to time, Mike's memory stock of early childhood is a jumbled collection of events which do not fall into an orderly time sequence. In his perception of time, a broken arm of 2 months ago happened right after he badly bruised his elbow when he was 3. Grandmother's death 5 years ago seems like last month to Mike. Most children have a confused memory of their early years, but those with normal receptive processes learn to view their experiences in an ordered sequence as they mature. Visual dyslexics do not. Since mastery of language symbols depends upon comprehension of sequence and interrelatedness of symbols, this perceptual limitation is the greatest obstacle facing the visual dyslexic in today's curriculum. Confusion with sequence is a definite factor in Mike's ability to accept responsibility. Because of his general frustration with order and sequence, he is almost constantly in conflict with adult demands. Oops.